Welcome to the Future of Clean, where each week we talk with experts about how to go clean today so every brand can go clean in the future. How is the millennial consumer evolving? What are their preferences? And how do they view brands and products going into 2020 and beyond? According to Deloitte's Global Millennial Survey, over the past 6 years, 42% of millennials have started or deepened business relationships because they believe a company's products or services are having a positive impact on society or the environment. And yet, the percentage of respondents who think that businesses are making a positive impact dropped 6 points from 61% in 2018 to 55% this year. So today, we take a closer look at the nuances of this clean consumer with David Tyrrell, global skincare analyst with Mintel. With over 15 years of experience in skincare, David brings a cross-disciplinary expertise in global R&D, market research, and new business development. David has a BS in chemistry and a PhD in biochemistry. David, thanks so much for joining the program. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me, John.
Let's start with an update on your work. What have you been researching recently?
It's an interesting area I would say it's evolving and actually growing too. I call it the 3 Ps, probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics. And postbiotics is a science term, obviously, and the industry has been kind of marketing probiotics in many cases as postbiotics. And postbiotics, simply speaking, are really probiotic fermented ingredients. So there's a lot of crossover between marketing and, let us say, the science. But it's interesting, you're seeing that term pop up more. I expect it to grow even more in the next few years. Consumers really want to kind of dig into the details about the ingredients. They want to know more specifics, so it's up to brands, I think, to creatively teach them. Education is going to be very important, but it has to be entertaining, has to be brief, arguably even bullet points. Although you can extend that, I'm a big believer in PopUps shops or stores. Why not have these educational tutorials within that setting? I think between a brand and supplier, those suppliers providing these probiotic fermented ingredients or postbiotics. So I'm very eager to see them grow because they flow very well into the wellness movement around oral probiotics for digestive health, which consumers do recognize as valued. They recognize them as safe and in many cases for many people effective. And then there's a whole blossoming area around mood and depression and stress associated with probiotics. So again, transitions really well into skincare stories, but you've got to get the science associated with that marketing.
You raise an important point, the connection between an educated consumer and what the science actually tells us a product or an ingredient can do. Taking one step back, walk us through the difference between those 3 types of biotics, pre, pro, and post. Many of us are certainly familiar with those terms, but it would help some listeners to hear your definition of each.
A probiotic is a living organism. I want to stress it's a living organism based on the World Health Organization. And if you administer enough of this living organism, it actually can provide a benefit to the host. So again, stress that. You only see a few products in the market that actually use live probiotics. Prebiotics I like, kind of refer to as healthy food or good food for the good bacteria. More simplistically, you see that growing in the use of carbohydrates, alpha-glucan oligosaccharide, fructooligosaccharides are probably the most common ingredients you see in skincare. But you're also seeing some clever use of more natural sourced prebiotics, and more brands are talking about them as well. And then lastly, postbiotics really are probiotic fermented ingredients. These are metabolites that are produced during the fermentation process in culture with the probiotic. Now, it can also include foods like soybeans as well, or a variety of other natural extracts that can produce a variety of different antioxidants and different metabolites kind of engineered by the use of that particular natural ingredient. So you're going to see, I think, a little bit more nuance from brands and not just having the typical probiotic ferment lysate. They're going to add, as I mentioned, a probiotic soybean extract filtrates are common, and lactobacillus is probably the most well recognized by consumers and actually used the most in facial skincare as well.
And again, you raise a great point. There's the customer understanding of the concept of pre, pro, and postbiotics, then understanding which ingredients can deliver those benefits. So there's a consumer education journey we need to explore. One of the things that you research and follow closely is that journey of the millennial and Gen Z consumer, especially as they emerge as the generation with the largest spending power. Almost every brand, of course, wants to resonate with this group of consumers. What are some trends that you're seeing that provide insights into how consumers learn? What's unique about the millennial and Gen Z consumer?
Well, the Gen Z obviously is fully digital, so they've been brought up with interacting, obviously using a smartphone. It's interesting. So I'll say the older Gen Z, so closer to those who are 20-ish, goes up to about 24 or so. They're really stressed kind of two things. Environment pops up quite a bit, and then also inclusivity. So you are seeing more genderless products into the market. Actually, for millennials, I'll jump to the millennials. They also are aligned with that as well, those two concepts. In the case of genderless, about 30% of millennials or women have used genderless products, and about another 30+% are interested in using them. They haven't used them yet. So that's roughly over 60%, almost 2/3 of women are interested in these genderless products. They're also very much so interested in clean beauty. So about actually 2/3 of women, millennial women, have purchased clean beauty or personal care products over the last year. So that ties into the whole story around safety or safe ingredients, which really, that's the foundation of clean, really has been on that marketing. The word clean really is an effective marketing of a safe ingredient. And free from claims in the US in particular are prominent. So
that's really interesting. 30% trying a genderless or neutral product. That's an amazing statistic because I think it really talks to the shift towards more inclusivity and a shift towards awareness. In addition, consumers are demanding safety because of a lack of trust of multiple brands they believe have a history of being unsafe, or the perception that they have not been safe.
It's just, and I think it's a perception. And the world we live in today, there's a lot of misinformation, unfortunately, which can go viral very quickly on social media. And obviously, Gen Zs and millennials are tapped into social media. I mean, 75% of millennial women, gather information on beauty products through social media. For the Gen Zs, there's more an inclination to use like YouTube and Instagram. For the millennials, and this is probably skewing more older, Facebook is usually the common source. But either way, it's, again, social media is giving them a lot of information. And it is a positive review online has a real impact, in a sense of a purchase influencer. Over half of the millennial women actually look for those positive online those positive online reports or reviews to make decisions.
You mentioned that one of the foundations of clean is safety, and I think that's very interesting because the theme of our Future of Clean Conversation series is how to actually define clean in the context of these consumer trends. One of the other pillars that we believe is important is performance. You mentioned reviews as a key driver of product success. So not only do you have to have a product that is safe, you have to have a product that delivers on its effective promise.
Yes, absolutely. And I maybe go one step even further is, going back to probiotics, just that word, it does resonate with consumers. They consider it healthy in use of skincare products. They're looking for it. And interestingly enough, looking for just about the same level of interest as vitamin C, which obviously is a very well recognized, respected, safe ingredient. But the one area that they don't understand with probiotics is, well, what is it doing? How does it work? Is it a moisturization effect? Is it an anti-aging effect? So to your point around performance, it's clarifying what that performance is. So what are the skincare claims that you're really trying to drive for? And more so now, kind of show me the data, not overwhelmingly show me the data, but just enough for them to believe that you're authentic. Clinical studies are always great, based on my earlier background, but not always necessary, but giving them enough information so that they perceive that the product is not only safe, but also performs the way you're saying it does.
You've been following the industry for a long time. Is the advent of the pop-up new, or is it something that you've seen before, maybe in a different version, and now this is the next iteration? Or is this an innovation that we're seeing, a new way? Help us unpack this, because I love the insights about the pop-up almost embodying all of these trends in one experience.
Yeah. I think it's just evolved. Maybe more, years ago from more simplistic, presentation to now their full experiences. And the experience has to relate to what the brand stands for in its positioning. But at the end of the day, you're walking this consumer, you're engaging this consumer, there's wonderful visuals that presumably link to the brand identity. But it is a new experience, and each one of them should be a new experience because the consumer's on to the next experience. So I think a lot of creativity in where you can have pop-up stores and obviously large department stores are being creative with that as well.
Thinking of the Target store revamp recently.
Target really has gone all in on clean, I think, and all in on promoting indie brands as well. I think that's trying to promote new experiences within, a mass merchandiser like that, which is quite creative.
And it's almost ironic that an in-person experience is designed for the digital consumer, but it's something that creates content. It's like a cycle. You're creating this amazing experience that's educational, it's brand relevant, it provides value for the consumer. And if they post this experience on social media, it becomes popular with their peers, which is a big driver of product success, in the same way that product reviews build trust as well.
It's like the new Apple, iPhone, when they would come up with a new Apple iPhone, you had these long lines going into the Apple. So sometimes you see long lines into these particular pop-ups because they promoted it as that new experience, the next new experience. That's the ultimate opportunity.
The Future of Clean is brought to you by Apronova, because we're committed to helping every brand deliver on the values we believe in: safety, performance, sustainability, and transparency. Learn more at apronova.com or find us on social media like LinkedIn and Twitter. So I want to shift briefly. There's lots of discussion about natural versus clean, or clean versus green versus other terms. I'd love to hear your perspective on the term natural and how you see it transitioning and moving forward in the industry.
So natural, it's long history, and just associated with a natural type ingredient. out of usually, you would process an extract from a plant. So it was a natural ingredient. Now it's really evolved to not just being natural, but the perception by most consumers now, especially in the West, even the US in particular, is that it's safer than mainstream ingredients in some cases. And that definitely leans to more younger. I mean, over half of millennial women are looking for natural product or have purchased natural products. So there's definitely a strong lean towards the safe association. But they're still kind of confused at really what that means, natural, organic. I mean, they see some certifications, USDA from the US. It makes them feel a little bit more assured that that is a safe ingredient, free of pesticides, has been grown a certain way. But it resonates with the consumer, but it needs a little bit more oomph now. So natural's been around for a while. Now you really need, I think, to define, I call it a certificate of analysis on the natural, because, what does that really mean? As the consumer is looking, trying to get more into the details, especially the younger consumer. So how are you defining as a brand natural? And you're seeing that. I mean, there's Tata Harper has their EcoCert natural cosmetic line of products. Weleda in Europe has been around for many, many years. All its products are Natru certified. Again, that reassures the consumer that they went to the next level to show that yes, indeed, our products are indeed natural.
And it's interesting because behind the natural claim, which is an amorphous term you just described, that the core of it, consumers are looking for safety. And we now might even add environmentally sound. You mentioned environmental claims are important to the new consumer, and the term natural actually may not be sustainable.
No, and that's I purposely left out the word sustainable, which that's what the consumer is now looking for, because that links into the environmental. So natural, many years ago, people weren't thinking about sustainability or renewability. Now they are. So that's an important component, because the world we live in today, I call them ecological alarms. So we have, 80,000 fires burning in the Amazon. Unfortunately, a lot, because of the warming of the oceans, there's degradation, damage to the barrier reef, to other reefs, coral reefs, air pollution in certain major cities, in Asia in particular, but actually in Europe as well, and the US. So all of those relate to the consumer around concern for the environment. Now, climate change obviously resonates with most people, but perhaps more importantly is, what's your footprint as a company? And so carbon or human footprint, because at the end of the day, you can actually be doing, you can be carbon neutral, but you're using all this packaging. So you're producing all this plastic waste. So how are you defining yourself is very important. So I think it's important that brands go forth and lead in whatever environmental areas they believe in and they see important. But the consumer is going to keep checking off more and more boxes as these ecological alarms, I call them, keep sprouting up. So it's really kind of incumbent on brands to drive that those environmental solutions. I'm not saying, again, from a pricing perspective, how much are consumers willing to pay for the environmental logo or label. I'm just saying they'll pay more. The question is, I think they'll keep paying more as ecological alarms, grow and grow and grow. So how do you stop those ecological alarms would be a great story.
I think that's a really incredible point. You mentioned check boxes in the consumer's mind. Is it safe? Is it sustainable? Is there a transparent supply chain behind it? Can I research more about the ingredient? These are the emerging check boxes today. What's your outlook moving forward? We know that we've been transitioning over the past few years. What do you think we're going to see in 2020 and beyond?
There's Mintel actually, we had a trend, Beauty with the Brain, which kind of focused more on the story, beefing up your story around science, but making the science consumer speak. So getting the consumer engaged in the conversation. So you're not pushing or promoting it. You're engaging that consumer through education. Burt's Bees has been around for many years. It's a foundational, long history of being a natural brand. But I was, what they did on a sensitive skincare line. It's a 3-step regimen they have. They took their 3-step regimen, their natural regimen, compared to a non-natural regimen in a controlled, randomized, double-blind study. Now that's pharma. You don't have to go that far. And then they actually showed, again, this is for sensitive skin, more skin issues, that they saw, improvements, statistical improvements, I believe, with rosacea and eczema. Again, a lot more weight with that type, and I'm not saying you have to go that far, but it validates the natural story very nicely when you can actually show clinically that it's actually improving. So you're going to see, I think, more nuances with that, more emphasis, and the consumer is going to be a little bit more pushy and asking, okay, so what are the real physical benefits? I mean, it could be moisturization, it could be some anti-aging benefit, even skin tone, but you're going to need to help them see those changes.
You mentioned before there's a kind of experience with the pop-up, the story of the brand, which can resonate with the consumer. Taking that one step further, where you're actually educating the consumer about the science of skincare.
Again, make sure it's, again, educating them, just like anyone who isn't a scientist, you need to walk them carefully through that, and not overwhelm them. So, and I think that's why I go back to the pop-ups, because those are really nice stories and nice visual experiences that you can walk them through why it's working and what it's doing. So I think that's it's basically the brand needs to be hands-on now with these, because they're expecting customization, personalization from the brand. Perhaps even the ingredient supplier as well. In some respects, they're expecting that personalization. So it's you need to really consider it. I mean, why has Glossier done so well? Because it established a strong community and has a very strong loyalty within that community. And so that's what I mean. Again, that's very much a social media brand, but the idea around building a community or bringing people into the family is not really foreign to anyone. So.
Well, I know we could continue speaking all morning, but I wanted to hear your final thoughts about what you might want to share as we move towards clean as the new normal. Are there key considerations for brands that we haven't covered yet that a brand might consider for their next new product launch?
Sure. I mean, well, clean, like I have mentioned, the foundation really has been on, at least in the U.S., has been on free from claims. That's no longer allowable in Europe. But you have to go beyond that. We talked obviously about ways to talk around natural. Vegan is certainly growing as a natural lifestyle that is getting certainly more play with consumers. Certification does help, but at the end of the day, I think you have to go even to maybe the next stage, which is tying this whole story around clean, around safety, into an environmental story as well, or even to an ethical story as well. I mean, eco-ethical is probably your strongest. You're seeing there's a new certification, or well, I shouldn't say new, but it's Weleda is maybe one of the few brands that actually has its Union for Bioethical Trade, which basically looks at sustainability around biodiversity while paying people along the supply chain fairly. So there's an eco-ethical, and then with the recent kind of alarming news that there could be a million species that go extinct over the coming decades.
Right.
I think that particular certification will get even more play. So it's like, think as a brand, okay, how can I go beyond natural, free from paraben, free from sulfate? You have to go beyond that. And then there's also the point around transparency. If you can get natural ingredients called new naturals that you're sure about their purity, they're pesticide free, just along that end where there's more confidence that the ingredient is safe, kind of around the traceability from farm to face, so to speak. However that works, there are many different technologies out there that potentially could provide that. I'm a big believer in synthetic biology because there's a lot more players in that market now. But you, again, add to the story of making sure that the consumer believes it's safe and effective.
David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be coming back soon to learn more about updates of your research and your expertise, and love to have you join again on the show soon.
Okay, great, John. Thanks again. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're here to make clean beauty all of beauty, so make sure to listen to our next episode coming out next week.